For the followers, they need to lead them to declare renunciation and evocation of all desires and expectations from the mindset to obtain within oneself and for the country. This is the karmic program, is locking up oneself constantly, locking oneself within oneself, locking up oneself and all things. Actually, oneself doesn't exist. There is only just delusive attachment and delusion. Let the Buddhas hold the space for the declaration of renunciation and evocation. All the mindsets, desire, expectations for everything, declare removal of all that. And ask for a hosikam, do forgiveness statement, and then share the conclusion of the Satyadharma. All these desire expectations are pulling them back. Therefore, it's important to use the declaration of renunciation more often and use the ahosikam more often. Open the minds towards blessing for samsara at large, which will happen naturally. At first, it may be a little bit persisting, but more of declaration and revocation and forgiveness statements that is often used, then it will become more smoother. Without this, it's difficult because it's pulling each other. This has been the samuttai, which is locking up oneself, the mind, one's own body, mind with this and that. Therefore, to start to conclude the Satyadharma, it will be difficult for them. Life at every period of time is always dwelling within oneself, nothing else. Life that is not involved with anyone is still life that is still involved with oneself. It has to be released out of life, not only not involving with anyone, released out of oneself, because that is involvement, involved with oneself, which has been like that across lifetimes. Therefore, it's not good whether involving with oneself or societies or external things. We have to know how to dissolve this. Once we have to be amidst samsara, it's impossible to avoid it. We have to use the essence to be amidst everything with the essence. It's inevitable. Suffering will be at every period of time because of the causes of karma, to be related and to pay back each other with debts of karma. This is something to do with the world, and samsara is inevitable. Therefore, we have to conclude well before being born. Have to humbly conclude through the essence of the Mahaparami thoroughly. Because anyhow, suffering is there. But if it's the era of Satyadharma as a conclusion, each realm of existence must follow the conclusion well, because it's all about no suffering. when the era of Satyadharma, there is no difficulty for all realms, because there's a conclusion that purifies all about living life within the samsara. It has to be by ways of conclusion for purification. This is called blessing. Disengage even from disengaging itself, that which is boundless. Be thorough with it, not to be limited with certain extents. Just continue with the boundlessness with everything. Just go ahead right through with the boundlessness, so that there will be purification through the emptiness continuously. Go further than limitations. Disengage without limits continuously. Disengage even from disengaging itself continuously with the essence of the enlightenment. Cut through the deluded knowing automatically. All the attempt to dwell delusively still remain. That is suffering that is remaining there. The delusion is the suffering in itself. Deludedly dwelling within anything, that is like dwelling within the suffering. Even dwelling within oneself is suffering in itself. Therefore, disengage without limits, so that it will not be limited with just oneself, surroundings, or societies, or samsara. Continue with the boundlessness, so that there will be no limitations with just samsara societies or oneself. Use these reminders to purify more constantly. Then it will be opening out without limits. Purify all types of traditional values. Don't use any traditional values as a refuge. Purify all types of belief values. Continue with the boundlessness. Letting go is on its own. Giving up is on its own. No grasping is on its own. Continue with this boundlessness. Continue with the boundlessness. Otherwise, one will just limit within oneself. Limited. This is like mental paralyzed. All that limitations with just oneself and feelings. Mental paralyzed. Being paralyzed within the feelings. Therefore, use that which is boundless, especially samadhi, mindfulness. Single-mindedness is mental paralyzed. Go ahead through the boundlessness right away, so that there will be instant purification of the emptiness without traces. Just purify all the projections right away. There will be purification of the emptiness that is proceeding. With everything, just go on without boundaries. There will be a purification right there to distinguish the realms of the lightness, the realms of the heaviness. Instead, purify through the Mahasunyata for samsara. That's the essence of the great perfections, the Mahaparami, or the Mahabodhisattva's essence. Otherwise, the purification will not be covering everything, because like karma is dominating realms of existence in the heaviness or lightness or medium. If the purification is not covering everyone, the blessing will not be in the same completion. Continue without boundaries, constantly. All at once, all at once, all at once, purifying all at once. Don't think who is sinking more or less. There is no need to distinguish to waste the time. Whether it's heavy or light, you have to purify all the same. More sticky or lighter sticky, there is, whether it's Brahma realms or hell realms, purifying simultaneously all at once. Purify simultaneously through the boundlessness only. There is no need to count one. There is no need to have steps before or after. Right through all at once. Boundlessness is boundlessness, that's it. Then it will be automatic purification of the emptiness without traces accordingly. If there is a projection, even a tiny bit, there will be clashes. Lightness or heaviness, there will be clashes. Therefore, don't use the projection. Go ahead with the boundlessness. Purify right away. Mind right away without limits. All at once, all at once. Purify to the emptiness without traces, so that there is no clashes. That's a waste of time to clash with the Vedana, the unbearable of any realms of existence, so that you will not be agitated by that kind of situations of heaviness, because there are only clashes. There is no usage of purification of the emptiness. There is just clashes with all the acknowledgement of heaviness and lightness. Go on without limits instantly. That is mind. Mind is unlimited. Non-attachment without limits. This will purify all the clashes, all the senses and contacts. Purify right away. When the boundlessness is always there, the grace, compassion is always there, the purification of the emptiness is always there. The only thing is when there is protection within the looking and seeing and knowing, there is a frame, there is a boundary, limitation. Discarding is on its own. That is boundlessness. Discarding, the discarding itself is the boundlessness. No grasping is on its own is the boundlessness. Discarding that is on its own is the boundlessness. Otherwise, one is stuck with just the projection. The preparation is always clashing. It's the senses, the contacts, clashes. There is still a separation. There is still a preparation in this way and that way. Always uptight and blocked. Always clashes. Instead of instantly purifying, instead when there is a preparation and expectation, always receiving the Vedana, the unbearable. The boundlessness will be instantly purifying. Therefore, use the boundlessness. Always recall this constantly. Then it will happen accordingly. The purification will happen accordingly. There is nothing that is more tedious than dwelling within oneself. The attempt to dwell is so tedious. It's like fermentation. You have to dissolve it. To dwell within all things is even heavier. To dwell within oneself is so blocked, so tedious, because the dwell within oneself is the karmic difficulties of the delusive attachment, is the habits of the delusive attachment. Therefore, continue with the boundlessness more often. No grasping for the non-attachment itself more constantly. No grasping for the non-attachment more constantly. This will purify the attempt to dwell, because this is the attempt to hold on, to be fixated. The attempt to dwell within looking, seeing, feeling, within state of mind, within the four elements of earth, air, water, and fire, or whatsoever. This is the habits of the delusive attachment, the habits of the samudaya, causes of suffering and sufferings. Discard the non-attachment itself. No grasping for the non-attachment itself. Disengage from the disengaging itself.